Howdy doody, everybody. Welcome to the Writers Hangout. My name is Konstantine, and with me is Arjan Terpstra, writer for Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West, and a number of other games. He's going to tell us all about it. Arjan, over to you.
Hello. Nice meeting you again. I'm good. Yeah. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. Can't complain. It's been busy. Busy is good.
Yeah.
Uh, so before we start, so here's what we're doing today. Most of the time on the channel we cover general literature. We've covered a few tabletop game designers.
Mhm.
So this time we're looking at different media, and this time we're talking about writing for games, design narrative for games, and that's why I brought you over.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've worked on the whole range of it. You've also
I
done a
think
little
so.
bit of
Yeah.
copy. You've also done a little bit of copywriting.
Yeah.
You've done a little bit of everything. Could you walk us through your?
Yeah. 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 I think I'm a jack of all trades. So basically, I started as a journalist. No, I started as a historian. I studied history and art history. Then I landed a job at a newspaper as a culture journalist. So I was doing all the reviews of all the exhibitions and that kind of stuff. And I went to see music shows and those kind of things. And then one day, like a pivotal moment in my career, my editor said, "Who of you?" And we were like with a desk of like six people. "Who of you plays video games?" And I was the only one to raise my hand. And he said, "Okay, so you are going to do our weekly video game story." So for 5 years, I was the video game editor for that newspaper, and I had my own, broadsheet page every week that I need to fill and talking about video games. And then I sort of course, I had been playing video games for forever, but then my interest was really peaking because I got to know the people who made these games, and I got to know the different roles, and I got to know the industry. I got to know why something is a success, why something is not. I got to know how stories are told within the medium, all those things, right? So gradually, I was sort of backtracking from being a journalist, moving into this wonderful new world to me, right? So, and then like about 15 years ago, I started to work first as a marketeer, like video game marketing, writing pitch decks for studios, and then gradually moving over to writing more and more about for video games. So I'm a video game writer now. I write, on some titles. I wrote on some titles. I also did a couple of books on video games. I did a book on Pac-Man's history, a book on Sonic's design history, Killzone, Final Fantasy 15. You can check them all out on my website. But those were great. Those books were great ways to truly understand video game design, also from like older eras, right? So like 1980s, 1970s, even to better understand what we are doing today, etc., etc. So that's basically my bio.
Okay,
If you,
so taking things from the top little by little. So,
hmm
uh, first off, you mentioned that you write for games, and
hmm
games is a wholly different medium than anything else most people that are listening to this podcast might be used to. So, what are the things, the principles you would say about writing for games? What
yeah,
are the things you had to learn first thing
yeah, yeah.
or unlearn?
Oh yeah. Oh, wow. That is going to be a list. No, I'll try to keep it brief. I think that the main difference between the video games and any other medium is the interactivity of it, right? So a video game, you're the player. You make your own story, and we can just give you a little bit of guidance that helps you understand the story. Of course, the story is completely thought out. We know what we want to tell with this story, right? But still, the player is like the big thing in the middle that the makers of these stories don't know, because every player is different, right? And they will have their own play style, and you will go to the left, I will go to the right at a certain point, and how will the writer accommodate for that in their writing? Okay, so that's the main difference. And so you have to unlearn a lot of things that you know about linear writing. I mean, write a book, it's linear. You can have flash forwards, flashbacks. You can do those things in a video game, but then you need mechanics to support that. So it's technology as well. um, So that's the main thing. It's not sometimes, and video games have a lot of different genres. That's also something to take into account. Sometimes it's a very simple linear story that you try to tell, and then the challenge for the player is like puzzles or platform, jumping around. Sometimes it's an open world, and then you have an interesting challenge as a writer, because an open world means that you can go left, you can go left again and left again. So if you want to tell a story that goes from A to B, C, D, how are you going to tell that, right? So there's all these caveats and all these challenges going into video game writing.
I've found the same to be true in my experience too. It's the hardest thing, especially if you come from we both came from more traditional forms of media.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Yep.
harder for us to learn and to account for interactivity. It's good that you talk about interactivity because I don't see many other people talk about this. The only other person that does mention this and does make it very clear was Evan Skolnick, Video Game
Mm-hmm.
Storytelling, which
Mm-hmm.
for me is one of the top books in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to know is you did work for an open world. You
Mm-hmm.
did work for
Yep.
the mechanics. How important do you think, in your experience, is understanding how the mechanics work and how the game works?
I think that's everything. I mean, it's always, everything is so, jointed together. Everything is dovetailing. Everything is everything. So what you have to understand, working in a studio will mean that there's, a small studio will have like 20 people, big studio will have hundreds, and they all do different things. They're all specialists, right? But geeky specialists. One person would do 3D rain pipes for you, right? Modeling. The other person will be in charge of a certain set of code that you need for a game mechanic. All these people have their specialties, and game writers are also part of that whole. If you're not capable of understanding what a game mechanic means for a game, then you're not in the right seat, definitely. You need to understand, because that's what the player will encounter, right? You will step into this game, there will be, like, I don't know, a puzzle. How is the puzzle going to relate to the story you try to tell? Does the puzzle have elements from your story, or is the puzzle just a puzzle that sits apart? It's just an obstacle to get through, to go from A to B. And but then how will the story pick up after the puzzle? All those questions are there. So building a video game, it's a fantastic experience to be in. To work inside of these studios. Because you learn a lot from your peers. I mean, you can grab a chair and sit next to anyone, and they will have a story to tell. They will have their focus. They will have their things that they're working on, and you have to do that. You have to learn what they're doing. You have to know their ambitions. They have to know how they see that game in their mind's eye, and then communicate and try to level and try to find that middle ground where everyone understands, is building the same thing. But it's a miracle that it happens, building that same thing, because it's super complicated. Yeah.
It is interesting that you describe this, and that you have this. You need to have this holistic view when you write for a game. A lot of people that are from outside of the industry have this mistaken impression that a game writer is a lot like a screenwriter, like someone
Yeah.
who writes a screenplay for a
Yeah.
movie, where
Yeah.
they come in with the idea and they show it to the studio, and the studio loves it, and they say, let's make a game out of it.
Yeah.
It's like
Let's make a storyboard and let's
which
shoot this movie. Yeah.
which is not at all true. It's not even a little bit true, and people
No.
don't understand how that works. So, in your experience, when does the game writer come into the process?
The correct answer would be as soon as possible. Also
Yeah,
defending. Yeah, right. You know what I mean. Okay, so here's the thing. The story is a part of the game, but as I said before, it's a part of the game. There's so many things going on building this game. There's this nice idiom, this nice saying. Someone said, building a video game is taking the hard part of writing operas with the hard part of building bridges. And that's the metaphor, right? I mean, it's technology and it's cultural creation. So you need both skill sets. You need people who are good at the scientific side of it, the technical side of it. They understand software, hardware, and game mechanics, and you need those people who are creative on the other side, who understand how to write an opera, basically. So then your question was, when would you start looking around for a game writer?
Yeah, where does the game writer fit into this whole thing?
I think we need one thing before I answer. There is like this small distinction between a narrative designer and a game writer. I think you will always need a narrative designer, because they will be responsible for like the story overview. Anything that happens in the game that's story related needs to go through this person, right? They will, and then a game writer will write the words, the dialogues. Perhaps there are cinematics that need scripting, those kind of things. So we sort of see two different roles that are overlapping. Sometimes the narrative designer is also the game writer. But what I would say is hire this person early on in the process, because they're super important to keep the story whole, understand all the aspects of the story throughout the gameplay, also help the marketing department find the right tone, the right phrasing for their marketing text, all those kind of things. So yeah, there's a lot of work involved, right?
It's interesting that you mentioned the dichotomy, because so initially when I started, the impression that I had was that the narrative designer, the game writer, to put it in layman's terms that people outside of the industry would more easily understand, the narrative designer is the cinematographer, and the game writer is the person responsible for the screenplay, the screenwriter. In game development, it's a little more vague a lot of the time.
Yeah.
In my experience, your experience is more toward AAA. You've worked more toward larger studios. In my experience, I've worked a lot with AA indie studios. So usually it's the same person. And
Yeah.
in my experience, and I think kind of overlaps with yours, is that you usually can't write for a game unless you understand how to implement for it.
Yeah.
Because you need to understand the real estate that you have to tell the story, the time you have to tell the story so it works in the genre, and what I call the art of shutting up, which is being
Yeah.
able to convey the story
Yeah.
in a way that does not overlap with the gameplay, because
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why the player's there.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and also you have to understand, the role game art plays or game audio plays. Those also tell the story. So you don't want to be in the way of your artists, and you don't want to be in the way of your audio people, right? Because they are telling the same story, and that's where the narrative designer comes in. As you say, you're completely right. It's in larger teams, right? There you will have a narrative designer person or persons who will keep track of what the audio is doing, because audio, atmosphere, lighting, even those things all tell the same story. What you walk into this village in this game, it's dark, it's already telling a story, right? I mean, it's ominous. Okay, so we have atmosphere, it's ominous. Will it be horror? We don't know yet, and only you have the decor, the backdrop of what's going to happen, and the story that and already the player will walk into this scene. You only have a village, it's dark, it's a little bit ominous, and they will start envisioning what this story will be like. So the player, there's this interactivity. The player already is building a story from what you offer them. That's the magic of video games, I think. What was your question again?
No, I meant
Probably a good
more
answer to a question.
in your understanding of how the dichotomy exists between the game writer and the narrative
Yeah.
designer, and how much there's. But this brings me to a nice thing, since you mentioned it. So what you're describing is essentially that you're building a simulated world.
Yeah.
This is not a new thing. We've known about this. People have been writing about this since like the 70s, early 70s, where we had Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, who were kind of like clawing their way through the mists, and they kind of like came up with the role playing game medium. So my question is, how do you account when you make a simulated world? How do you account for the agency of the player? Like, is there even anything you can't do? In my experience, usually you can't. and there's no point in doing it, and you need to always write with that in mind, but maybe your experience is different.
Oh, this is a complicated one. Of course, there's always the technical limitations of the game. I mean, a player will bump into things that they can't do. It's very simple. You can't cross that bridge because there is a little gate, and you can't climb it because we don't allow you to, climb over it. So you can sort of put rails to the story, definitely. So yeah. So, and player agency, it's a hard one. It needs a lot of testing. You have assumptions about what the player is going to do, but then you have the first group of test players, and all the assumptions go out of the window. That's happening all the time in video game design. You need to understand it's an iterative process. So it's always like we have version A, then we will have version B. It will be completely different version C, D, etc. And then one day it will ship, and then, as you call it, ship. It will be in the stores. It will be in your hands.
And then that's when you do your best editing. That's when it's out of your hands. You can't do anything about it. That's when you do the best editing.
That's when you see all the mistakes that are still on the game now, and we all have our war stories about that. But yeah, no, but it's a tricky one, because really what you want to have, like in an ideal situation, an ideal scenario, the game will give agency to the player in any way they can conceive, and there's so many games that try that, right? They give agency, they allow you to wander these open worlds, but then you also bump into games that have an open world but not enough to do. So where's your agency then? I have the agency to walk around. It's like an enormous world. Okay, here is a dungeon. I have a little fun here. Now I need to walk for like 15 minutes real time to find something else that piques my interest, right? All those things, those play into the player experience, and good studios are always putting players first. That means that players get to test the game in an early stage and point out where they wanted agency and sort of expected agency, but they can't have it. So then you can adjust. Yeah, but it's one of the tough things tough not to crack.
Absolutely, because you can't account for every permutation.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I think there's no point. There's no point when you have a game that's very open to design things linearly and to account for everything. What I found in my experience is that the best game stories are not actually best stories in the traditional sense. Like if you look at, like, I don't know, games that have totally have great stories, like Disco Elysium, Baldur's Gate 3, personal favorite, Fallout New Vegas. They're not great stories by themselves.
True.
They're great stories in their medium because they reward the player for engaging with the game.
Definitely, yeah.
And because they do that, you can create a positive feedback loop. I'm seeing this like in a lot of games that are made with this understanding. It's completely different. I wanted to also ask you about this, since you did mention art. You did mention working with art, and you did mention that you did study art history, which I consider to be among the chief skills you should have for this line of work, or just to work with video games. But anyway, so where does this come in? Like in your experience, where does this come in when you're writing, when you're discussing with other members of the team?
I was on a team where I had a lead narrative designer, and there was this lead concept artist, and they teamed up and they made sure that all the tables of the concept art team and the tables, like the physical tables, right, the desks, were joined. Like the writers and the concept artists we joined desks, because what they said, we are one team. Whereas top brass would say, no, this is two teams. This is an art team. This is a writing team. What's going on here? No, we are one team. We're telling the same story. And I think that's was really, they made a very, very good point. Concept artists are the people that make like the first iterations of what the game will look like. So they make like larger pictures that have like an overview of the style that they want to make the art in. Perhaps they draw first character art, prototypes that that are more like an inspiration thing than the final thing that players will eventually see. But those iterations are pivotal to the success of the game. And you sort of test the waters, like does the team like this? Does it fit our other games? Does it fit our portfolio? All these questions. But then, so at the moment, these concept artists are building these beautiful concept art pieces. It's at the same moment that the writers are feeling, putting their toes in the water and feeling what the story should be, and because we're telling the same story, right? So it would be a waste of time if I would be thinking about a story about a dragon and a knight and rescuing the princess, whereas the artist is doing sci-fi. We have a problem there. But
Eh,
yeah.
you
So
can still make it work.
very good teams make that work. No, but you understand my point, right? I mean, it's the same effort. It's this we go for the same goal. We want to tell a story, and a huge part of a video game is visual. The other big part is atmosphere and audio, and the other big part is words. So you see a monologue, you see a dialogue, you have found objects that a diary that you find, and it gives some description of something. All those things they tie in to tell this story. So yeah, art is super important. And then I think it
And
helps that I studied a little bit of art history, because eventually you start talking about style and also composition and those kind of things, down to use of certain color coding, those kind of things. It's really their prerogative to decide on those things, but I can comment on and feedback on their work, right? And I think that's good for the team.
no, it's
Yeah,
it's good. It's good to see. It's good to understand our history, and I think that a lot of the time, at least in my experience, I see a lot of artists, especially juniors, sort of following trends and
yeah, yeah.
following the same ideas. And a lot of the times things get lost because if you look at other avenues, if you look into art history, if you look into nature, if you look into, into history
Mhm.
itself,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
create something more substantial.
I completely understand, agree with you, and I think this goes for all good art, right? If you're coming from somewhere, if you have like roots, any roots, if you can build your art from your cultural, from your understanding of your cultural past, that really helps to ground your art style and your story. And and you're emphasizing this as well. I mean, this is, it's super duper important. And I see the same thing, that sometimes, not everyone, but artists are, a little bit shallow in their approach to art. They're about shapes, they're about form, but form, it has a function. Yeah, well, you're from Greece. I mean, you know your Greek art, and the statues and the building, the architecture, but also the fact of where these things came from. So sort of like an informed background of ideas that you can pull from, and that will give your game more meaning. If I use classical architecture in my game, I'm telling something, right? That's also a way to tell stories and to build bridges between people. You understand why I have this classical temple there, because you have like the same mind frame that sort of understands that building, and understands the context of that building. So yeah, it's super important to do that.
I
Yeah,
mean, even if you have a Western mind frame, you can always open up and look into other cultures. I
of
think
course. Yeah.
it's wrong to think you can't consult or you can't help people understanding
Hmm.
this. There's um there's an objective understanding of how things work beautifully and how they function, and
Hmm.
everyone pretty much ends up there. But I didn't mean to just diss artists. Writers aren't better at it.
No,
We
true.
in our profession, we kind of have this thing where, okay, the first big sin is, of course, everyone's obsessing with originality, and
Hmm.
frankly, originality is for amateurs. If you know what you're doing and it's your job is to give spin to something that exists and works.
Yeah.
But a reason why I also wanted to talk to you is like you said, you have a copywriting experience,
Hmm.
and I feel it's good to work in as many genres, as many styles as possible,
Yeah.
because it teaches you how to speak the language in a game.
Hmm.
And I wanted you to tell us a couple of things about this.
About the copywriting
Yeah, yeah. How
and how it
copywriting, like, do you feel it
how
transferred over?
I think all writing transfers. Um, I think also learning how to edit stuff, learning how to be brief. You touched on this before. Learning how to listen to a client, that's copywriting. I mean, you get a client and I don't know, they want to sell olive oil. And now I have to know how to sell olive oil, like in an instant, because I don't know shit about olive oil. But then, I want to know. And then you quickly need to interview this client and ask, like, what are the main, the unique selling points of your type of olive oil. And then you need to make copy out of that. So that means write a small text, write some marketing materials about this olive oil. And then you go to the next client and they sell cars. So then you go into their brand of cars, right? This teaches you a lot of stuff. I mean, you are agile. You need to be quick on your feet. You need to be, I don't know, yeah, flexible. And and of course the flexibility really feeds into working in game design, because their plans drop off the table all the time. uh, so
Absolutely.
so I'm writing this wonderful section for level 4. We're not doing that anymore. Where the hero enters the gates. No, we don't have gates. You need to adjust, right? The artist couldn't find the budget to build these pearly gates that you wanted in the game. So now you have to do the scene without pearly gates. All those things happen all the time. So you need to be really on your toes. You need to be truly flexible in your writing. So that means your mind needs to be flexible as well, to not, fossilize and because then you're done for. Then it's then you're out before you know it. It's like, you really need to be the flexible guy. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's absolutely understandable, and it's something that's not really talked about, and I don't see talked about in any talks. I don't see talked about in any. I hardly see talked about in actually any of the books I've
Well,
read.
but there's a new book out. You really need to have it here. It's by Richard Dansky. You probably know him.
Oh, the yeah.
Yeah, the video game writer's guide to surviving an industry that hates you.
I think I should bring over Mr. Dansky.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
my new Bible. Richard Dansky is for those who don't know him. Richard Dansky is like a veteran video game writer who has
And
been
he used to
involved.
write for White Wolf as well, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. He does horror books. He does so much. I mean, his output is dwarfing everyone's, I guess. I mean, this guy's a giant. Anyway, he wrote this book, helping younger upcoming video game writers find their bearings by just telling it all.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
here's the thing. It's not that the industry hates you. It's you just have this opinion because a lot of us. The problem with writers is that we're in two modes. Either
Mm-hmm.
we trap ourselves in echo chambers,
Mm-hmm.
or we isolate ourselves like islands, and we think we're the only ones suffering. When it's true that everyone's going through this. If you're
Yeah.
going through the video game industry, it's understanding the changes, understanding all the things that are going to happen, understanding like all the crazy feedback you might get. An example is
Yeah.
an example of feedback, for example, I got from a project was a director telling me, "Don't use words I don't know."
Yeah.
So
Okay, can you make a list, please?
it's no, there was no point. There was no point.
Yeah.
There was no point at that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, but
I
I
had
that's part of the experience, like the weirdness of it, and and that's also within this title of Dansky's book. Um, it's a hyperbole. The industry does not hate us; they need us. We're part of that industry. But it's like sometimes you bump into a colleague that does not understand what you are doing, like
yes.
what writing is, what writing entails, what your thought process is, what your what your actual writing process is, what steps you need to take, how you outline stuff, all those things.
It's very difficult to
Yeah.
quantify because
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing a coworker, but it's when someone on the team says we'll make 150 swords,
Hmm.
the director, the producer, and everybody understands it, and they say, "Oh, 150 swords, 150
Hmm.
swords, and 100%, we've done this." But when you come to him and you say we're going to need 10,000 words of barks,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
even that word count is kind of like it's going to change, it's going to fluctuate, where it's going to be placed.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you want to do something that boggles the mind. It's a
Yeah.
little difficult because
Yeah.
it's soft science.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, and you also, the example is like, also in like the show don't tell. I mean, you have to sometimes offload some of the story to the artist. Like the famous example in film is like when the script says, and then 10,000 camels came over the top of the dunes in the
Yes.
attack, right? Like Lawrence of Arabia type stuff. Um, and then you can do two things as a filmmaker. You can sort of show 10,000 camels coming over the rim of the dune, or you can have someone tell that. And we have the same thing in video games, right? We can you need to find the right way to tell some stuff. I mean, those 10,000 camels, perhaps for video games that's easier because it's copy paste, and then you have a lot of camels. Um, but then you can also use words like, okay, I'm terrified. Any moment the 10,000 camels can come over the ridge. Those kind of things. It's what I call narrative affordances. So what are the affordances that you can use? Can you use a cinematic where you make a video basically inside of your game that shows the 10,000 camels? Do I offload my 10,000 camels to an art team that has to build 10,000 camels for me? Or do I use words and just have two characters have a dialogue there, or on screen, you know 10,000 camels are coming up, please defend yourself. I don't, all those things, like this one phrase could sort of go into 10,000 directions and have consequences for the team.
But in
So
order
yeah,
for you to understand it, you need to understand how to speak the language of the other people in your team.
definitely. Yeah,
And you need and
definitely.
you need to be able to get it, because a lot of the
Yeah.
time we tend, like, it happens across the board, but this is a podcast for writers, and very
Hmm.
often writers don't want to do this. Uh I have heard of stories of other professionals trying to train, for example, writers into other disciplines so they can understand how to do their work, and their response would be something like, "But I was hired to write." And
Yeah,
it's, yeah, but you
but
need to write to your medium.
yeah, you're hired to write for a video game, and that's different. So there's still a lot of stuff that are like let's say a regular writer would need to bring to the table. Sometimes you're just working on a script. Sometimes you're working on a story arc. You're working on character designs. You need to find the speaking pattern for this character. That's the same, when you write a book or when you write a video game. The only thing is that you need to do 10,000 iterations of the voice, and then the voice actor comes in. You need to guide them through the process of giving you giving their best performance with that character in mind. So it has more dimensions. It's multidimensional, more, or at least it has more dimensions than what a writer does working on a book. Um, they both have their challenges, but it's a different way of writing. If you only come in, if you would come into this industry, the video game industry, thinking that your regular writer skills are enough, then it's going to be a hard time for you. When you're open up to the idea that it's different, then you're already halfway. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just different.
But it feels like it sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it's definitely rocket science, but we we don't want to put these people off, right? Sometimes, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's better if we tell them the truth.
yeah, yeah.
So speaking of things that aren't rocket science, and how some things are easier to quantify, another thing that also people don't really talk about because it's not an exact science, but I think it's good that we discuss and we go over, is Bibles, like narrative
Hmm.
Bibles, world Bibles, character Bibles,
Yeah.
etc. So how do you put those wonderful things together. It's like how do you how do you go about them?
Yeah. Well,
Oh, and first off,
there,
let's explain what those are.
yeah, that's I think that's a good starting point. Okay, so a Bible. Sometimes a team has several Bibles, but usually they're combined into a World Bible. And the World Bible gives you gives the team all the information they need to see this world, to start building this world, which means the Bible will, especially for the story side, not so much on the technical side of the game, but on the story side, it will give you the information that you, when you start building this game, have defined as, it's a fantasy game, so you give a genre about, whatever, strong knights from a certain order, and you sort of step by step take your team through the rules of this world, the story rules of this world. So I think you have to see it like, if Tolkien would have a compendium that he started with writing Lord of the Rings, right? That would tell you, yes, it's a self-contained world that this action takes place in. There's several races, and then I have a list of races. So yes, we have orcs. Yes, we have dragons. Yes, we have hobbits. Yes, we have everything. And then it's like, land size. The traveling that Frodo needs to do is this many days. This would be the compendium. This is if Tolkien would be a game writer, he would write a video game. This would be the first thing he would write down.
So you
Not be,
need to understand level design, metrics, walking
because
speed.
okay, so and here comes the difference between a regular, like a book writing and a game writing. We need that story Bible, that world Bible, because Tolkien was happy enough to be the owner of the whole story, and he just put words to paper and wrote these fantastic books. But we need to convince a team about what this story is. Perhaps we are the Tolkien of this story. Sometimes, we can come up with all these things, but then we need to communicate those things to the rest of the team. Meaning that you need a central document that is the law. And that's why it's called the Bible. It really is the law. If it's set into this Bible, it's set in stone. Because the Bible, sometimes there are these clear rules about who can edit. Like a narrative director, yes. A lowly writer, no. Or he gives some text to the narrative director. Game director, yes. Lead game architects, responsible for the coding, no. All those things, because this is how we see the story. This is what we want to build. This is the story that we want to build. This Bible also contains, key art, like not all the art, no, key art. Like this is what the land looks like, one picture. This is what the main character looks like, one picture. And these seldom change. The Bible stays with you throughout the development of the video game. Of course, once there are instances where you run into problems where something doesn't fit or the story doesn't gel, or you
As
can have
you
a
do.
million, as you do, then you change the Bible as well. But that takes a lot of meetings and and shouting and anger. No, that's hard. I mean, the Bible is the Bible. So you once you establish this Bible, this is what you go with. So yes, an important document. Yeah.
Right. So that's how you establish the tones. That's how you establish the bases. That's how you set up the world, and how
Mm-hmm.
everyone else works.
Yeah.
So my question then comes into: does this also establish the way in which you tell the story? When do you establish how you'll tell the story? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
you have cutscenes, you have the dialogue, you
Yeah.
have
Yeah. That's what
the barks of the
I
codices.
yeah.
But when does this come in?
Well, early, because so here we go into another topic. It's budget. Budget meaning the amount of money available to pay these people to build this game, and also to pay the landlord and lunches and all those things. Game budget is of course super important. Once you start on a new game, people will plot out what it will cost, and then cost will give you like the scope of the game. So the scope being, we can have the development of 10 wonderful big characters. We can pay for the development of 10 levels. We can pay for the development of 2 tank types, but not 4. Those kind of things go into the art Bibles or the world Bible as well, because now we know what the scope of the game will be. And then the artists have something to go on, because now they know we only need to draw 2 tanks. Let's make them the best tanks that we need, that we can think of. Character designers can start on those 10 characters, all those things. So yeah, so the Bible also, even if it's not explicit, but it also goes into budget and scope, because those are all related. And that's also like a complicated thing, because sometimes in a creative process you can think, I would want to have 12 different types of tanks, because my game needs it, right? The story needs 12, because I have 12 factions and they all have their own tank type or whatever. But then the budget guy would come over and like, no. This is not, we only have the room for 2 tanks. So then already you establish this in the World Bible, meaning that you have an argument for or against, and you can continue the process. So yeah, man, yeah.
It's a pragmatic thing. It's a changing thing. It's I know a lot of the things we're saying right now don't sound very concrete, but whoever's listening, you need to understand that you need to think on your feet. You need to be able to adapt.
Definitely.
You need to be able to change to the needs of your team.
Yeah.
Any last bit of wisdom you'd like to share with someone who wants to get into writing for games?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, my sort of the moment I truly got games, not game, but games. I truly understood what the medium is about. Is when I read this book, a bit theoretical, digital play, and it said you can only understand games by looking at the triangle of business, culture, and technology. And I'm getting to your question. Business being, budget, scope. It's being you're building this game, but it's free to play. Now you're building a very different game from where it's a premium sold game. So that you go into like business models. Do you need to know that as a writer? Well, yes, if you do a free-to-play game, the gameplay will be very, very different, meaning the story is distributed different from another type of game. So business is one of the triangle, one of the points of the triangle. The other one, technology, quite obvious, but not. Technology is software, hardware, it's input devices, it's output monitors, all those kinds of things. Is it a VR game? Well, when you do a VR game, the player is in one spot. How am I going to tell a story when he can't move, right? It's a very different writing experience from writing an open world game where the player can roam about. All those things. So technology is the second point on the triangle. And the third point is culture. And then we go back into, what you want to know as a writer, cultural background, know a little bit of art history, know a little bit of history. To be able to tell a story with gusto. That's basically it. So you need to come to the scene with a basic understanding of the business side, basic understanding of the technological side, and the cultural side. And the cultural side is also like how are games marketed. That sort of touches on business, but also on the cultural side, because they're marketed differently in various countries. Free-to-play games have weird marketing, as far as I'm concerned, compared to AAA games. It's all it all feeds into what the story that you want to tell and the work that you do. So my big tip, I hope, for aspiring video game writers is understand what video games are before you start on this journey. And they're lovely and they're wonderful, and it's fantastic to work on them if you're sort of understand that basic.
But you have to be brave, and you have to be able to take some hits on the chin, and you have to be able to
definitely,
roll with the
definitely.
punches.
Definitely, yeah. But that's true for, when you do film writing as well, right? I mean, you're not going to get unscathed, without wounds if you finish a movie, right? Um, yeah, but also on the plus side, I think it's very nice to know that you're always on a team. It's a team effort. So you're not that one author and it's not your video game. It's it's the team's video game that you're building. So that's very if you're the type of person that likes to be the author, if you want your name on the cover and the book in all the stores, then you go that direction. If you're okay with, I'm on a team, my name will only pop up in the credits like, half an hour down. But I have this great experience working with the best and brightest, because oftentimes video game developers are very bright people. Multicultural, lingual teams, people from all walks of life coming into these studios. That's fantastic. So definitely a yes to try to break into this industry. Yeah.
So before we go, would you like to share with us what you're working on?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm working on this new real-time strategy game. It's called Frey. It's in very early stages. It's with a studio in the Netherlands called Gamius. And I'm the narrative designer on this project, meaning that I get to talk to the game director about what type of story we want to tell. I can't tell more about it because it's very early days, but it's a nice project.
It's all right. NDAs are the bane of
NDAs
us
are
all,
the
but
yeah. So
hopefully we'll see a trailer soon. We'll be able to see
yeah,
more of your work.
yes, that would be nice.
So, Arjun, again, thank you very much for coming
Thank you
over.
very much for this wonderful talk. Yeah, I enjoyed it
This
very
was
greatly.
great. Hopefully, we'll get to have you over as soon as Frey is out. Uh, thank you very much. Everybody, have a great night and good luck. One last thing.
Yeah.